Welcome to Women and Resistance, a powerful podcast where we honor the courage, resilience, and revolutionary spirits of women across the globe. Hosted by Aya Fubara Eneli Esquire and Adesoji Iginla, we uncover untold stories of defiance against systemic oppression, whether colonialism, racism, sexism, or economic injustice. From historic icons like Winnie Mandela and Fannie Lou Hamer to today's trailblazers, we shine a light upon those shaping a more just world. This is a call to honor the past, embrace the present, and build an empowered future. Yes, greetings, and welcome back to the Women and Resistant podcast, where we uncover the stories of women who have fought, seen and unseen, for Africa's liberation across the world. I am your host, Adesoji Iginla, and joined, as always, by the brilliant Aya Fubara Eneli Esquire. Before she goes into character, where she will be embodying the spirit of Breffu, the Queen of St. John. Welcome.
They can take my body, but they can't take my spirit. No, they can't take my spirit. They call me Breffu. I am of the Akwamo people. We are part of those who are called the Akan, residing in modern-day Ghana. We were a great people. We are a great people. We ruled. We had our forms of government. We had our structured societies. And we were fearsome warriors, men and women alike. Part of our legacy is that we did conquer some of the other peoples around us. We did enslave people, but not in the manner of what we experienced on these here Danish land. 24 square miles. 24, that's it. How do a mighty people, governing themselves for centuries, become slaves? This cloth around me, covering me, do you know that these people would have us work absolutely naked? Not a nakedness of where you are revered as a human being, but a nakedness as though you are a wild animal. And they treated us as such. In 5 years, these people. Because unlike them, I will acknowledge that they are people, though they were certainly animals in their behavior. They captured us, and on that small island, we outnumbered them 6-1. They kept capturing and bringing us to feed their insatiable greed. We grew everything: sugar, tobacco, and cotton. How do a great people become the slaves of animals walking on 2 feet? We too must contend with where we went wrong, our conquests, and our own greed, and how we started to fall away from the culture and the values that had kept us one and strong. And so we had fights over succession that weakened us. And we had neighboring groups that we had angered. And eventually, as these people made their way to our lands, our people thought that they could get a different kind of freedom, liberation from us, by joining forces with the one they knew nothing about. Overtaken by machines of war, we found ourselves shackled. Princes and princesses and members of the royal family, shackled alongside those who had served us, thrown into the bowel of what they called a ship, headed for lands unknown. It was 1733. Saint Jan, controlled by the Danes. Today, colonized by the United States of America and called the U.S. Virgin Islands. When you go on your vacations, do you know the history? Do you care to know? The blood of your ancestors that fertilize the fauna by which you stand and take your pictures for your social media, that's what you call it? Do you know? I, Breffu, was taken as a slave. Do I look like I can be somebody's slave? I suppose in their eyes, seeing as I'm not human. These people would feed us like you would feed animals, only to keep them strong to do your bidding. They would offer us no coverings, not even when it got a little cold and windy. For they preferred for us to huddle together to seek the warmth of each other's bodies, because that way, perhaps, we would bring in more human beings for them to enslave. Can I tell you about our conditions?
Please do.
On this island, where most white people did not want to be sent, many who came to these islands were the degenerates who could not survive amongst the white men of their own ilk. One of them, he would write repeatedly, asking the powers of his country to let him come home. But they would never respond to his letters. And they eventually promoted him to governor. Let me share with you some of what he had to say. Philip Gardelin, risen from the post of bookkeeper and merchant for the company. Because you see, it was corporations that drove most of what they call the slave trade to oneness, the oneness trade to us. All across Africa, it was these corporations from these now called Western countries, buoyed by their religious orders, like their so-called Catholic Church. But he was first a bookkeeper and then a merchant for the company at St. Thomas, one of their colonies. And he was eventually promoted to the position of governor, because it was felt that if he could come and last as long as he did, he might as well be promoted. On St. Thomas, many of these degenerate men, they died from the bites of the mosquito. On September 5th, 1733, in the midst of a prolonged drought on this island, he issued a mandate of such severity which really made it impossible for us to continue and not fight back as enslaved people. His mandate provided that leaders of runaways should be pinched 3 times with red-hot irons and then hanged. Have you ever had just a little singe from your iron or from your oven or from a hot pot? I hear some of you today, in the name of
What?
fraternities, you call it, willingly subject yourself to branding. What happens to a people who do not know themselves, who do not stay connected to their spirituality, to their gods, to their ancestors, what happens is beyond a tragedy. It is the thing that keeps me sorrowful, even on the other side. A Negro, under his mandate, found guilty of conspiracy, was to lose a leg unless the owner requested lightening the sentence to 150 lashes and the loss of the Negro's ears. My God, the cruelty. Slaves failing to report a plot of which they had knowledge were to be branded in the forehead and to receive 100 lashes besides. Informers of Negro plots could secure cash premiums and have their names kept secret. All the ways they have us divided amongst ourselves. Runaways caught within a week were to be punished with 150 lashes. Those of 3 months standing were to lose a leg. If they remained away for 6 months, it would cost them their lives because there were many maroons that were being forged. Thievery and assistance of thieves and runaways were to be punished by whipping and branding. A Negro raising his hand against a white man must be pinched 3 times with a hot iron. Whether he should be hanged or merely lose a hand was left to the discretion of his accuser for just standing up for your humanity. And a woman, naked and pregnant, working the fields, was to, like an animal, lay down, have her baby, and get right back to work. Oh my God. Can you understand a burden so heavy that you must fight? For what type of life is that? A Negro meeting a white man on the road was to stand aside until the latter had passed him. Some of you are still stepping off what you call sidewalks because it seems ingrained in you now to always bow down to those who have proven to be less human than we. Having sticks or knives, so-called witchcraft amongst Negroes, any attempts to poison, any dances, any feast, any music, any loitering in the village after drumbeat, all were provided against. And if you happen to have become one of the very few free Negroes, and you were in any way implicated in a runaway plot, you would be deprived of liberty and property, and after receiving a flogging, be banished from the land. This mandate was 19 paragraphs long and was to be proclaimed to the beat of our drums 3 times each year to strike terror into the hearts of the enslaved. The half-famished Negro population. The drums called, speaking a language they couldn't understand. And we met in secret for months, planning, figuring out how we were going to bring about our freedom. We of the Akwamu tribe, as they would call us, we did not call ourselves a tribe. We had military institutions. We were an empire. We were skilled in warfare, ironwork, and governance. And we took the lead with planning our revolution. We were a matrilineal community. It was not at all surprising that a woman such as I would be at the forefront. But there's still some things that we hadn't quite worked out. As we planned, with members of other ethnic groups, the Congo, the Igbo, and others. Stories of who we were in our ancestral land also circulated. And there was a concern amongst some of us, the enslaved, that should we prevail, we would set up a system mirroring the system we came from, that we would enslave the other Africans. Perhaps we should have been aware that first we needed to address the possibility of these divisions amongst us before we took on our common enemy. In the morning, early hours of November 23rd, 1733, according to our plan, I struck the first blow. Oh, yes, I killed those who thought they were my master and mistress, and their children too, and their guest. Terror briefly flickering in their eyes as the blood gurgled out of their severed tracheas. And then I gave the signal, and the word traveled. And all across the island, we began to do what we had planned to do. Many of those people, so-called enslavers, they lost their lives that night, in the wee hours of the morning. But not all. Some were able to make it to the harbor and to escape to the other islands. On the afternoon It was a Monday afternoon, November 23rd, 1733. One of the soldiers and some others who had escaped from St. Jan, they appeared at the fort in St. Thomas and poured into the ears of the devil incarnate Godlin, the governor, the most fearful tale. They were always very afraid of us and what we could do, which is why they worked so hard to keep us afraid, hungry, unarmed, to stoke divisions between us, even as they bred us. The best of them, he considered himself a more benevolent master. Sometimes he mused that he would actually like to see us free, but he could not conceive of a world where he did not have us to do his bidding. These lazy pieces of human excrement. They still can't stand to see us free. They still cannot imagine a world, their own existence, without our bodies at their beck and call. It's still about controlling us. I don't care what you think, or how long you've lived, or how much better the clothes on your body may be today. Don't get stupid about this. You must listen and learn from your ancestors. You must learn the lessons, or you will repeat them, and you will stay enslaved. We destroyed some of the places that needed to be destroyed, but we largely kept things intact because we were going to create a place for ourselves. We had carved knives from pieces of wood. We found whatever weapons we could. And when we overpowered them at that armory, we took over all their ammunition. Some said we were naive. We didn't have a sense of how they would muster other forces against us. Of course, most of the stories told about what they call our rebellion, our revolution, are stories told by them. So, of course, they will tell the stories in a way
that belittles the effort.
Absolutely. And that keeps us doubting what we are capable of doing should we unite. And they came at us. But they also underestimated us. Because we fought back. And we overcame the Danes. And then they got more reinforcement. Now the British. And we fought. Their fear being, if we lose St. John, then it might be St. Thomas, and then it might keep going because we would no longer fear them. We would believe in our capabilities to free ourselves. It was imperative that they crush us. For almost 8 months, we held out against their superior weapons. But let me pause. Do you know that these sorry excuses for humans, these people who in the history of the entire world have to be the ones closest to the animals they called us? Because you know what they do. They project. They call you what they know they are. Lazy. Shiftless. With no morals. Do you know that they would have us stand around their beds, fanning them all through the night to keep the mosquitoes away from them? So more of us died unprotected than they did because we were their protection. Can you believe that? In what ways, my sons and daughters, are you still their protection today? Who do they send to fight their wars? Who do they experiment on? All of their technological advancements were tried out on us first.
Yeah.
Brown, black, yellow, red. They try them out on us first. And without us, they would kill themselves because it's in their blood. Yeah, it is. It has to be. Because though they might argue that we too, my group, our empire, the Kwam Empire that we enslaved people, you must understand that that word means different things in different places. We never stripped anyone of their humanity. We never attached a status to the offspring of those people for eternity. We never forbade people from rising to still be who they could be in their God-given rights. It was not a lifetime sentence, and it was certainly not one that got passed down to your children. We did not breed people as animals. At the onset of our rebellion, even the cats and dogs roamed around with blank stares, dazed out of their minds from hunger. Many of the animals had been killed to provide some sustenance. Our bodies long denied the sustenance that we needed to be strong. Nonetheless, for many of us, our minds were strong, but not for all of us. Many of the whites who got away were aided by some of us Africans. Nonetheless, we held them off for almost 8 months.
Mm.
And then they brought the reinforcement from the French, promising these men what would be the equivalent of thousands and thousands of dollars, promising them land to come and kill off the savages. Men who had no hope of any fortune in their homelands signed up to make a life out of our corpses. My children, does this not still sound familiar to you today?
So,
And what are you going to do about it? I was in domestic service under these good-for-nothing human beings. I managed movement between plantation spaces, and every time I got to move around, I took note of the terrain, I took note of the land, I watched them. I learned everything about them. I knew them better than they knew themselves. We utilized all kinds of means. Sabotaging work in the field, poison sometimes. Don't ever believe that we did not resist. They tell you that to make you a docile, easily managed, easily manipulated people. I had knowledge of all their routines. I listened, I observed. I knew where their weapons were, and I knew how to access them. And I was such a great servant that they permitted me to move, and they had no suspicions whatsoever. Do you announce your every move? Must the whole world know what you are planning before you execute it? Who are the strategists among you? There's a time to make a noise, and there's a time to move in silence. And the ones who will lead the revolution are the ones who understand what the times call for. We did not move alone. We did not act alone. We depended on the ways we moved in our ancestral lands. We sought out our ancestors. We were known for ancestral veneration because we understood that we were connected to something more than ourselves, both from the past and in the future, which is why I'm talking to you today, and I hope you are listening. I served as a spiritual intermediary. I could hear from both sides. The spirit world, the ones who had gone, the ones who would return. And I could speak to them. I could carry the messages back and forth. I was a ritual leader. Their words, not mine. We had our ways of doing things. And I remembered and I honored and I practiced them. And that helped to strengthen us. And I was a leader of my people. But there came a time, 7+ months of unrelenting pressure. Those divisions, they started to crack wider. They had other Africans coming and whispering, you know what they're going to do. You're not going to be free. They're just going to be your new masters. There was division between those of us who were more recently enslaved and could still remember and connect to our ways, and those who had now been bred, some of them calling themselves mulattoes, thinking that somehow that white blood in them was going to save them. And they said, they're going to enslave you. You're not going to be free. And for some of us, for too many of us, because even one is one too many, we seemed to think, even if it were true that their Kwamus, led by Breffu, was going to enslave you, we felt better to be enslaved by the white man than by our own. Is it that we had forgotten our gods? Is it that we had bought into their gods? What is it that will make a people say, I won't serve my brother, even if that were the case, but I would rather be an animal to a white man. It's like my heart would break. Because we're still there today. All these centuries later, we are still there today. And so in that 8th month, we were overcome. They captured so many of us. According to their records, hundreds killed, 149 more captured. Many others feeling that our resistance was futile and believing the words of these eternal liars that if they surrendered, they would be spared. They marched willingly and gave themselves over to the people who had never in any way shown them that they could keep their word, not to us and not even to themselves. And what did they do? Some were beheaded on the spot and paraded. Some were sentenced to work in chains for life. Not me. Not me. According to their records, there were 23 of us who refused to surrender. And when we knew that there was no way out, rather than giving them the satisfaction of taking our lives, we determined how we would die. On our feet, as men and women, as divine beings. And even in that last act, we were instructing future generations. I did not fear death that day. It's inevitable. We, you, all of us, in the physical realm will all die at some point. But can you have the courage to choose your death? Will you be on your knees? Head handed to them on a platter. There's only one thing they're ever going to do. They're going to cut you off one way or the other at some point once you are no longer of use to them. Prove me wrong from the history books. Prove me wrong. We saw them approaching. We knew we were completely cornered. We also know that these are just physical bodies, that our spirits cannot be contained. We watched with tears in our eyes as members of our groups betrayed us, told them where we were hiding, gave them all the information they needed. buying into false hope. Mm. We sang. We affirmed who we are as human beings, as warriors. We called the name of our ancestors, and we bid them to welcome us with open arms. We told them about our struggle, and they told us how proud they were of us. And as they closed in on us, I looked one of them in the eyes. I could see him licking his lips. I suppose, like a cat would when they're about to pounce on a mouse that has nowhere to run. But I had the final say, and so did all of us in that circle as we stood with our backs to each other. We fought as one, and we died as one.
Huh.
Courage in our hearts, tears in our eyes of what could have been that was thwarted, not necessarily because of the might of the white man, but because of the virus they had introduced into our minds that caused us to forget that we are a great people. And when we fight unified, we win. Today, they write with glee that besides what is known as the Haitian Revolution, they were able to quell every uprising, every slave revolt in the Caribbean. I heard that there are another group of people, many with the blood of Africa running through their veins, whether they realize it or not, who are even today being threatened. I think that area is called Venezuela.
Correct. Yes.
I hear that today there are a group of people with the blood of Africa flowing through their veins who still have not learned who they are, who are collaborating. I think that place is called Trinidad and Tobago.
Yes. Yes.
I hear that wherever we, the children of Africa, are today, that we still haven't figured out we must mend the divisions between us. I did not come here today to just talk about myself or the things I did or how I died. I came here to remind you that it seems to me that not much has changed.
Hmm.
A little extra food here, a little extra access to something over others who look like you, and that causes you to be so afraid of losing what little niceties you have acquired that you would separate yourself from those who look like you and decide that siding with your enslavers because you're still enslaved makes more sense than overcoming the differences with your brothers and sisters and working together. I wonder if I were to look into your hearts today, what role would you be playing on that island of St. John? Would you have been fighting with us? Would you have been a spy, sharing information? What would you have been? Would you have been one of those buying into an idea that if you just sell enough of us out, you would be okay? We must return to a time when we lived at peace with each other. We must acknowledge that the Ma'afa, the slave trade, the African Holocaust would never have happened if we were united.
True.
You must go and make peace with your brother, with your sister. But we cannot control others. And so if there are those amongst you who have shown themselves to be treacherous, you must take them at their word. You must not let them into the circle. They must not know what you are planning because they will be the first to sabotage. My children, this means you must put down the things that keep you distracted. You must pay attention to the lay of the land. You must know where the water is. You must know how to coax a fruit from a plant. You must know how to protect yourselves. You must know how to heal yourselves. You must become a self-sufficient people. Not a people dependent on the charity of others. You must be disciplined. You must be disciplined. You must put away frivolities, for you are at war right now. And you must, by example, train the young to continue the fight. Because though we took our lives that fateful day, our spirits lived on. They live on today as you hear my words. Words to stir up your remembrance. You must tell the stories to the children so it may counteract the virus. I am Breffu. I come from a long line of women who knew their strengths. And who were not afraid to do what must be done. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming through. And yes, that was Breffu, Queen of St. John. You've heard the call to action, which is try and build bridges with your brothers and sisters, go into communities, study the land, strategize, learn to keep your lips sealed. Loose lips cost lives, as they would say. And yes, that's it. I, first of all, have to say thank you to everyone for coming through, for again joining us on Women and Resistance. And a special mention will go to Sister Sweetie and Miss King 915 for the gift. Thank you very much. And I would also like to announce that Sister Aya Fubara Eneli, when she is not embodying the role of the women we put on a pedestal week after week, she is also established author. And she's just written another book. And This book is titled Kwanzaa, a celebration for home and community. And I will have you know that the book was released today and available for purchase on Amazon in paperback and Kindle. And so, yes, congratulations to you. And it's also a welcome aspect in the fact that one of the 7 tenets of Kwanzaa is the right of self-determination, which is what we're trying to do with these stories here. The idea that we do not need anyone's permission to be who we are. So again, it could be the perfect gift for people in this Kwanzaa season and any other social structure season. But the title of the book again is Kwanzaa, a celebration for home and community, available as of today on Amazon. That said, we've come to the end of another episode of Women and Resistance. But as is customary, next week we'll be looking at the lives and times of Marian Anderson. The lives and times of Marian Anderson. But today, back to today, we have to thank our ancestor Breffu for coming through, giving us the call to action, as if we need any in this life and times that we now exist in, ever more so, that we now have to strategize. We have to strategize. Cannot stress that point enough. Build community wherever you find them. And it's important to also guide yourself against outside infiltration. So that said, Ms. Breffu, thank you for coming through. From myself, Adesoji Iginla, it's good night and God bless. Until next week, see you in them streets. Good night. That is it for this episode of Women and Resistance. Thank you for joining us in amplifying the voices of women who challenged injustice and changed the course of history. Be sure to subscribe, share, and continue the conversation. Together, remember, we honor the past, act in the present, and shape the future. Until next time, stay inspired and stay in resistance.